Hello everyone, this is Aegon of Astora, and welcome back to my caster build playthrough of Dark Souls Remastered. This is episode number 14 being recorded on Monday the 16th of July. I hope you're all having a fantastic day whenever it is you find yourself watching this. In the previous episode, we cleared the Tomb of the Giants, and we got our first Lord Soul, that of Gravelord Nido. Soul of Gravelord Nido, first of the dead. This Lord Soul was discovered at the dawn of the Age of Fire. Gravelord Nido administers the death of all manner of beings. The power of this soul is so great that it satiates the Lord Vessel, despite the fact that much of its energy has already been offered to death. To administer, as a verb, which is how it's being used here, is to manage and be responsible for the running of a business, organization, etc. Be responsible for the implementation or use of law or resources. Dispense or apply a remedy or drug. Deal out or inflict punishment. Of a priest, perform the rites of a sacrament, typically the Eucharist. Direct the taking of an oath, or give help or service. So he administers death. So that's Nido's Lord Soul, and the other reason we're in the keys department here is because we do need the Crest of Artorias. Hello, friend.
Oh my, what a brilliant ember you have there. I've only heard legends of such specimens. The embers used for the secret rites of divine blacksmiths. Perhaps you could lend it to me. I've long dreamed of forging divine weapons.
What an oddly specific dream.
Splendid, splendid. Thank you. Andre of Astora never disappoints, I assure you.
Of course not. You've never disappointed me, friend. Except for saying that your work on me would be wasted or whatever in Dark Souls 3. That's probably the only thing. So the Crest of Artorias. This crest opens a door in the Darkroot Garden sealed by ancient magic. The door leads to the grave of Sir Artorias, the Abyss Walker. I almost said Abyss Watcher. Many adventurers have left for the grave, but none have returned, for they make easy prey for local bandits. With such dangers, the crest can do more harm than good in the hands of the uninitiated. Yep, that pretty aptly sums up the PvP implications of this crest as well.
Don't get yourself killed. Neither of us want to see you go hollow.
One thing I should mention is that the door we're going to... It noted that it was sealed by ancient magic, so that is that of the Seal sorcerers. And we know that they work with light, so obviously it has light effects on it and whatnot, but also with the crest key, we learned that Hawkeye Go is being stored in a tower, and there's only one door, and that it's a door sealed with a powerful spell. So that's something that the Ulusilians seemingly did a lot of. Not only locking doors with spells, and using light to accomplish that, but also by creating illusory walls that are open only with light. So thankfully, we're at the point where this area is just going to be a cakewalk, I think. You used to be able to see that item shiny through the rock in the original game, so I see that that's something they did not address. Not that it's really much of an issue, but... So here's the ancient magic right here. But we should actually roll through this door here first. And do that before we get invaded. And again, not really necessary for us to kindle that to 20 Estus, but we have the humanity to use, so we might as well use it. So we could use the Crest of Artorias to open this door, but we still have an entire area over here that we've not yet explored, so let's go do that. That right there is a crappy soul item. And that's a good message, because yes, it is indeed a trap. These Ents, or demonic foliage, as I think they're called in the official guide, they will pop up out of the ground as soon as you grab the item, and then they spawn every single time you walk by if you do that. So, not at all worth it for the soul item that's there. Really a beautiful place. Notwithstanding the paper trees. This right here is a tree creature of sorts. And in order to get past it, you need, unfortunately, to kill it. So... I don't know that we ever saw enemies like this ever again. Like, I guess... It's so goofy.
Hey guys, what are you doing there? Y'all having a good live stream? I'm just hanging out myself.
It's like... They went extinct because you murdered them all, I'm sorry. Like, what is this? It's like a ladybug, but... a stingray. These are the less effective and derpy cousins of the basilisk. Yeah. Yeah. Might as well be. But yeah, I don't know where they came from, what their deal is, but they're a thing and they drop green blossoms. Jeffy. So this one, I don't think you need to... Yeah, you don't need to kill this one. So it's like, just the game testing to see whether you're a monster or not, I guess. And... we have another... And we have an ambush over here with more of the ladybug stingrays. So they're coming out of the basin. We woke up one of the guardians there. Much later iteration, seemingly, of the Guardian Knights in the Royal Wood. And these guys, they cast Tranquil Walk of Peace, which is interesting, or I suppose it could be a special ability of the sword, but I don't think that's true. Because it does seem like they're casting it using their sword, but Outland Miracle, Foreign to the Way of White, slows all walking with an effect area. This miracle is normally used to flee, as it slows walking but does not affect attacks, but nevertheless defines peace perfectly. And here we have the Wolf Ring. One of the special rings granted to the 4 Knights of Gwyn. The Wolf Ring belongs to Artorias, the Abyss Walker. Artorias had an unbendable wheel of steel, and was unmatched with a greatsword. When the Trashman and I were doing our co-op playthrough of this game, we got to that spot and I was like, so do you think you can make the jump or should we just go the long way back? And he's like, no, I can make the jump. And then he missed the jump. Then I was thinking, how great would it be if I missed the jump too? After laughing at him for like 5 minutes when that happened. I guess this is technically the long way around. And we've been invaded, so that's lovely. So we might as well put on the Wolf Ring. And wait for our invader friend. Wait, why did I come back here? Evidently, I don't know where I'm going. Hello? Oh, that simultaneous wave, though.
Hello.
GG. I guess we might as well go hollow. I was about to reverse our hollowing, but our bloodstain's just right here. And I was thinking that we should summon... that we would summon Witch Beatrice, but... Yeah, we'll do it so that we can summon Witch Beatrice. So let's try that again. So the tree, sadly, is a single spawn. So once it's gone, it's gone. You have to live with the monstrous thing you did for the rest of that playthrough, at least. I don't know why picking that up. Don't need it. So these, it would seem, at least based on all the stuff that we speculated about when we first went to the DLC earlier in this playthrough, the demonic foliage, or these Ents, E-N-T-S, would appear to be a much later iteration, or perhaps a de-evolution, of the cuties in the Royal Wood, who were the tree people who were tasked with tending to the other trees. And they have their little watering cans and their shears, and this is the winged spear here, I think. Whoa! Went so high in the air there. Oh, come on. See, I was just talking about how great you guys were. I'm sorry. Is that painful for you, remembering the times when you had a watering can? Yeah. Beatrice is an interesting case. And I think, at least according to the cut content in the game, Beatrice was originally supposed to have much more characterization. She was originally, at least as best as I can recall, I might be confusing the cut content from Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, but Beatrice, I believe, was originally meant, there was supposed to be a young Beatrice and then an older Beatrice, so sort of a rogue Ulyssilian sorcerer, maybe? She was supposed to be? I don't know. I remember once having a pretty clear idea of what the whole Beatrice thing was supposed to amount to, or at least my interpretation of it, but the way they bounce up into the air after being hit. You're supposed to be able to summon a young version of her at some point. Yeah, I thought I remembered that. And they had like a different armor set for it and everything. And it's also weird that she like hides her summon sign under those trees. I'd love to know why. Hi, friend. It would fit in with Dark Souls 3 timey-wimey dark places thing. If you summon her for the Abyss, she's younger. Yeah, absolutely. But also in Dark Souls, I feel like they were originally planning on doing that again in Dark Souls 2 with the Emerald Herald. Presumably in an attempt to finally sort of execute on the ideas that they had with Witch Beatrice, but then they never did. They never ended up doing that either. The feather, when we first got it, was supposed to be just a feather. And then we gave it to Shanalot as a child, and then later it becomes the aged feather. So, yeah, little things like that. That it's just funny that they seem to be later iterations of the same idea, but then it just doesn't work for whatever reason. I have a feeling she's gonna kill the boss before I even get a shot at it. Yep. Good job, friend. You did good. Yeah, she made short work of the poor Moonlight Butterfly. Wasn't bothering anyone, really. All the Moonlight Butterfly wanted to do was feast on these plants here. That's it. Like, couldn't we have just run by? Like, why? I guess then you have to start questioning why fog gates exist. And, yeah. So I mentioned in an earlier episode, because someone asked, like, what even is the point of killing the Moonlight Butterfly? And this is it up here. Another abandoned blacksmith post with another clone of Andre holding a Divine Ember and a Watchtower basement key. As well as a Homeward Bone, because you can very easily just fall to your death here. So Ember required for weapon ascension. Divine Embers are property of the church and intended for divine blacksmiths. So I wonder if Andre is going to be less enthused about this one, because we've already given him the large Divine Ember. So he's going to be like, oh, well, I guess I'll take that one too. And we also have the basement key. Opens the narrow passage leading below at the far face of the Great Bridge in the Undead Burg. The lower Undead Burg is a treacherous place. Do not turn your back on the wily thieves or the wild dogs who serve the Capra Demon. A little bit of advice for the boss there. So use that key to get into the tower where Havel's being held. But if you have the master key, there's really no point. If you don't want to kill the Moonlight Butterfly, there's no point in doing so, because you already have that key anyway. Unless, of course, you also wanted the Divine Ember. But yeah, otherwise, again, no point. Moonlight Butterfly has a soul, therefore it has weapons, boss weapons. What weapon can you make with the Moonlight Butterfly soul? And that's actually a really good point. Because as it says right here, special beings have special souls. Whereas in Dark Souls 2 and 3, every boss you kill, virtually every boss, has a soul. The soul of the mystical Moonlight Butterfly, which flitters in the Darkroot Garden. Oh, that word, flitters. Like, again, maybe I'm just exceptionally sensitive to such things, but I feel like FromSoft is trying to make you feel bad for killing a being that was really doing nothing but flittering and feasting on plants. Oh, the butterfly horn, that's right. It says that the butterfly soul is a creation of Sif the Scaleless. So more than anything else, or perhaps just in part, this item description would seem to be there to indicate to you, to hint to the player, this Sif person, if you don't know really much about him at that point, is a pretty big deal. If Sif is creating souls, that's a pretty big deal, I think. Because again, they're much more rare in this game than, you know, you don't get souls for killing the Capra Demon, the Taurus Demon. And what is the shield? The butterfly horn and the crystal ring shield. Thank you, everyone. I remember getting those solely for the achievement, but I don't remember ever using them or anything. So let's proceed to Darkroot Forest. We're almost certainly going to get obliterated by players almost instantly, but so just like we saw in the DLC, the Ulusilians were all about using light. Plenty of summon signs here. Lots of potential for ganking, I'm sure. Can't remember whether I can parry two-handed greatswords. Thankfully, he made it easier for us by using it in one hand. There's our first invader. Hello. Oh, Vendrick's here now too? Oh my god. Are we fighting? No? Oh, this guy just really doesn't like blues? Okay. That's interesting. That's amazing. Okay, should we fight now? Who would have thought that our invader would be such a friend? Ooh, GG. Me knowing their combat style isn't going to make a lick of a difference, Ellie. They're going to kick my butt no matter what. I've never been especially adept at Dark Souls 1 PvP. And this build, like, we have things we can use now, but I still, at least with a Pyromancer build, I don't really know how to use our magic in PvP. I know how to use in PvE just fine, but I don't really know how to catch players off guard in the same way that... Because you don't really need to do that with the NPCs. You just have to get your positioning right. Spam Black Flame. Yeah, I suppose I could do that. But even then, like, I've tried to use combustion a couple times, and I haven't been very good at doing that either. So I've mentioned this before, probably in my casual playthrough, but it was this area where I first actually became, like, half decent. Is love at first sight? Oh no! What happened? Oh. Okay. Hi. How are you? No. He's trying to build trust with me. So I feel like this enemy did not do that in the original game. Because what I was about to say is that it was by fighting the Forest Hunters, these NPCs, that I first really got a handle on the combat in this game. And prior to that, I just couldn't... I was too stuck in my Skyrim mindset, because prior to having played Dark Souls 1 for the first time, the game that I was playing more than any other was Skyrim at that time. And the issue with that, of course, is that I had like a level... I don't even know what level 200 build that was, you know, virtually invulnerable. And all the dragon shouts and all that stuff, and then I go to play Dark Souls and it's like, oh my gosh. I can't just destroy everything by looking at it in this game. That one has, yeah, that one enemy has the fog ring on. So maybe that's like their way of trying to sort of get a window into the soul of the people who are invading the forest. They saw Sweet D and they were just like, oh, hi. I really don't want to kill you, but I'm gonna have to. I always forget about the delayed attack on this one, but yeah, this is basically where I learned how to parry. initially, and I was never good at parrying this guy even then. These guys, as well as the hollows in the Undead Berg, the spear hollows. Okay, so where are we? Relative to where we were in the DLC. Dark Souls is such a kick in the teeth compared to how easy it is in Skyrim. Well, and I remember in Skyrim, like, you know, it had a stamina bar and stuff, so I was like, oh, how different could this game be? I could not have been more wrong in thinking they were similar. So I think the bridge that's over there, we might as well finish clearing out the enemies before we start exploring those sorts of questions. Because we haven't found Ferris yet. Where's Ferris at? There she is. No, those are Ents. Oh, there she is. She also has a fog ring on. And a fancy hat. Like the fanciest hat of all hats. Black Bow of Ferris and Ferris's hat. So another example in which our tendency, our assumption that gender-neutral pronouns should just be male pronouns, showing in English that patriarchy is reflected in the language itself. Referred at least, yeah, so his hat is universally popular among children. Broad-brimmed hat favored by the archer hero Ferris. Ferris was an accomplished archer, and though he was human, he ranked alongside Hawkeye Go, one of the four knights of Lord Gwyn. His hat is universally popular among children. In the original Japanese text, apparently I'm led to understand that a gender-neutral term is used here, in the same way that a gender-neutral term was used with the old hunter bone, which we learned was later in the DLC, referring to a woman. And likewise here, there was a lot of confusion concerning whether the woman who had the hat and the bow was herself Ferris, because the item description defaulted to male gender pronouns. And that's something that I've heard discussed elsewhere, but often when it's discussed in other places in the community, and I don't mean disrespect to anyone in particular, but often when it's discussed, all that's said is that it's a mistranslation. They don't explain the reason why, and that is that when we're translating things, or just, you know, our habit of mind in the Western world in English is to just assume everything is male, and I'm certainly no exception to that. I do that all the time, even when there's no obvious gender attached to things. But it's something that should be pointed out and discussed instead of just saying, oh, well, it was a mistranslation. But it's interesting that they did all sorts of grammatical corrections and changes in this game. And yet, things like this remain. So, I don't know what that means, if anything, but the preferred black bow of the heroic archer Ferris has a longer range than standard bows, but is more difficult to use. Without proper abilities, results will be underwhelming. So, I'm trying to map in my mind this area onto the Royal Wood. Trouble with that is that much like we did when we were in the Royal Wood earlier in this playthrough, this is another one of those areas I often just ran through. So, I don't know how successful we're going to be in doing this, but that's why we're going to return to the Royal Wood later in this episode so that we can try to... I just got my butt kicked by demonic foliage. You guys were supposed to be my friends! It's like, yeah, nothing to see here. No big deal. Okay, we gotta clear out these guys once more, unfortunately. So, the fact that these enemies, not all of them, the two knights, as well as Ferris, don't respawn. But these ones do. Suggests to me, and this is consistent with the fact that they're just generic builds. They all have the default starting set and equipment of their builds. So it's just that the Forest Hunter has any number of player characters at their disposal, which is true not only within the context of the story of the game itself, but also its online mechanics. That long after the servers are offline, and there are no more players... No, they've always respawned whatchamacallit. Not the ones with the fog ring. I think is... Well, actually, never mind. The thief has the fog ring, but... The thief respawns, but neither of the knights nor Ferris herself respawn. But the others always have. That's not a new thing that they've added. Because recall that I was saying earlier that when I was farming for souls / learning how to parry and get good at the combat in this game in general, I spent a lot of time fighting those enemies. And that was how I more or less became proficient at the combat in the game. Has anyone had a chance to verify whether that enemy in the DLC, the one with the chainmail, whether that's in the original game a single spawn or not? I feel like it never was, but I always just assumed it was because, again, there's no reason to ever go back up there. Much quicker to just take these ones out with Waialae's Fury Sword. Because it would be very curious. Eastern set there. I'm going to assume that's there regardless of what's going on with Shiva. A distinctive helm made in an eastern land. Exquisitely crafted, this helm offers excellent defense, particularly versus slash attacks, which are one of the main threats in battles in the east. This was something that JSF was complaining about. I think it was on Sinclair Lore's podcast where we were talking about the East in Dark Souls and how we often hear references to the East in all the games, but we never actually went there. And nothing seemingly came of it. So, another thing I showed off in my Dark Souls casual playthrough is that if you are a super low-level invader in the Forest Covenant, which I don't recommend doing this because it's kind of cheesy, but if you invade someone and you want to wait for them to die so that you can reap the soul benefit, if you're too low level, you can invade, and then jump off here, and then go up and around to the bonfire, and just sort of watch from the other side. That's at least a rare instance. I don't know of any other such instance, but I don't doubt that they exist where you can get around a bonfire, and in spite of the fact that there's currently PvP going on. I think that's everything for this part here. We do still have to go deal with the rolling kitties, unfortunately. So let's go do that. So this spot here, okay, I do know where we are roughly, because this spot here is where we first see Calamite, where he goes on the bridge and then goes over that way. Not coincidentally, also where the basin is. And a bridge that is there so that the basin and the forest are connected. So that's another way I suppose you can get around the fog gate, but yeah, that's not there in the future. But it's a bridge that you really don't necessarily need to go over. And these are... So they're clearly supposed to be related to Alvina, right? Oh my gosh, that was frightening. I was looking at the chat. Oh, you're still alive. Sorry. I'm reasonably certain that's more or less the same model that Alvina has. Not the most graceful fall. Where are you going? Oh. The worst part is that they behave like big kitties too. Yeah. These things go 0 to 60 in like an instant. Look at that. Oh. Oh no. How did it not hit us there? Yeah, it's basically that Katamari game. Okay, so I do know this spot. But what I would like to see... Because I know they changed the area somewhat. Which is fine, because areas change over time. Due to processes, natural and otherwise. But I would like to find the spot where you can look down and see the abyss, but somehow I don't think that it exists anymore. Where there was just a bunch of gunk. It is interesting that the abyssal pustules are no longer present. The one thing that's annoying about the flowers in the garden, and I'm sure this has bothered every Souls player to have ever played the game, is the fact that they look like item shinies from a distance. Hi, friends! So if you're a monster, and you want gold pine resin, you can farm the mushrooms, and I think that's actually really the only farming spot. Is it possible that since we killed Manus and the abyss isn't spreading as rapidly and therefore has stabilized somewhat? That is absolutely possible, I think. But I'm not sure. I don't know exactly what is happening, or what happened after that, because clearly we didn't stop the abyss, because the abyss becomes more abyss-like in the present of the game than it is in the past of the DLC. I think the mushrooms are related. So here we have the stone set. Moss-covered armor of the Stone Knight, defender of the Darkroot Garden. The Stone Knight is a product of ancient magic, and although this armor is also imbued with magic, it is incredibly heavy. But I suppose that is an open question, whether or not there are multiple abysses, abyssi, whatever. Recall that in the DLC itself, yeah, the Abyss isn't really a name that leaves room for siblings. I suppose that's a good point. The Abyss. Oh. What is happening over here? What are you doing? He's really getting down. Oh my god. Guys, this is your whole... I guess they're just learning to walk. I shouldn't be too hard on them, because, like... The way the daddy mushroom is looking at you with a help me face as his kid goes nuts. I don't know if that's so much a help me face. Friend, you just walk around. I don't know if that's so much a help me face as it is, if you step 1 inch closer, I will add your blood to the blood that is on my midsection and my hands. The parents, like, I guess they are guarding an ember, which, you know, that's an important job. Very, very important. Oh, I thought he disappeared. But you would, you know, you would think that teaching the little mushroom people how to walk might be on their list of priorities as well. And now all of them are just looking at me. I love the puttering of their feet as well. Ooh. Yep, they are very protective parents. Hard to blame them because the mushrooms really haven't had the best luck in this series. We didn't get the item, but you may recall that when we came across that pond in the Royal Wood, where are they going now? They're just going for a little walk. Okay, I guess they're taking my advice to heart about teaching their kids how to walk. Or no? No? They're like, should we go tell Sif that he got the ember, or that she got the ember? They were thinking about it, but then they're just like, no, that's okay. Yep. They're good. Oh, man. So, when we were in the DLC, when we got to that area, and just in terms of continuing to get our bearings, like this place compared to the DLC, this is where we enter the Royal Wood. That isn't where we fought Artorias, but that's where Artorias' quote-unquote grave is said to be anyway. But that is the Ulusil Sanctuary, where we meet and speak with Elizabeth. So presumably these mushroom people are the descendants of Elizabeth. But whereas Elizabeth didn't have arms, and she spoke, the generation of mushroom people that we have here, they do have arms, and they don't appear to speak a human tongue. We have no evidence one way or the other to say that they speak, or that, you know, that they do or don't communicate, but hi, friend. Do you remember us?
Is it not so that thou art new? Thou fared well to find me. But cometh thee not for the grave of Sir Artorias? My advice true. Forget this. The legend of Artorias art none but a fabrication. Traversing the dark? 'Tis but a fairy tale. Have thine own respect. Go not yonder knocking for nothing, I say.
So, she was right about some of those things, wrong about others. Sweet D, however, is a... Wait, what did she ask us? Did she ask us if we wanted to join the Forest Hunters? Or whether we were going to go away? I'm going to say no, because I think she asked whether we were going to go away.
I see. A result most heathenish and gross. Then there is nothing more to say about this tedious reckoning. Begone from here, pernicious caitiff.
So, I have done that in the past, because I remember being similarly shocked by how brutally honest she is, and how quick she is to turn on you. And it is curious that even though they programmed Sif recognizing us, that somehow she doesn't recognize us, even though she's the one who led us to Sif, or at least an apparition of her, seemingly.
Begone from here, pernicious caitiff.
Wow. Yep, she does not mince words. Aegon sees quite a lot of humans. Does Sif? I would say that yes, Sif does. Or at least, he does now. Because when we go into what was once the Sanctuary Garden to fight Sif, we find swords all over the place. Which I'm led to understand, as with many, many things in this game and these games, is a reference to Berserk. She does mince meat, though. It's a side hobby. Fair enough, Scarrow. I think we might have missed an item nearby where the basin connects to the forest, but we're going to leave that for now. Once again, we see a door sealed with ancient magic. And I'm just thinking about how we want to approach this. And I think I have a plan, though I don't know if this is going to work. So again, sealed with ancient magic. Light magic, I guess. But we only need to touch the door to open it this time. And we have here the remains of the Ulasil Sanctuary. But it looks very different. Like there's nothing here. A door and that's it. But I don't even think the door was there in the past. The door was added later. How did someone get up there? Well done, friend. Sorry, Sif. Yep. I didn't think that would work nearly as well as it did. So yeah, as I mentioned, we have all of these swords here, which is seemingly a berserk reference to mark graves or where soldiers have fallen, but also just meant to indicate how many people have come to challenge Sif for the Covenant of Artorias. Whether they knew what they were doing or not and why they were doing it is another question, of course, but yeah, all these people came and died to Sif, and then we just one-shotted the poor pooch. Sif was guarding this here, as well as the Covenant of Artorias, the Hornet Ring. Presumably because it's so, or at least it was at one time, overpowered in PvP. one of the special rings granted to the 4 Knights of Gwyn. The Hornet Ring belonged to the Lord's Blade Karen. By boosting critical attacks, its wearer can annihilate foes, as Karen's dagger laid waste to Lord Gwyn's enemies. We also got the Covenant of Artorias. This ring symbolizes Knight Artorias' covenant with the beasts of the Abyss. Its wearer, like Artorias himself, can traverse the Abyss. Like Artorias himself, that's not obviously true, as we've learned, that the Abyss is actually very harmful to him. But I do wonder whether this was a ring that Artorias was nevertheless wearing when we fought him, or that maybe he left it with Sif along with his shield, and that somehow Sif was wearing this ring. Either that, or maybe I don't see why Karen would have had it. But yeah, the implication is that Karen died here, seemingly. There was a lively discussion about this in the chat in an earlier episode, and I don't recall what the specifics of it were, but there were good points on either side to say that if Karen is dead as of Dark Souls 1, who trained the Abyss Watchers and sort of created this extended cult of Artorias? And then the other side was essentially that it's become so divorced from what Artorias actually was that Karen probably didn't really have anything to do with it anyway. So I could see both arguments being valid, but I'm not sure where I line up on it. Recall that just like in the DLC, we can see the walls of Anor Londo in the distance. But because we're in Darkroot Garden, that is where the dark took root, we are also subjected in perpetuity to a skybox that is stuck in a state of, perpetual dusk. But then what is implied by the Hornet Ring appearing by the grave in Untended Graves only after the Abyss Watchers are defeated? That is an excellent question. It is only associated with Karen. Yeah, it's not associated with Artorias. It's the ring that was specifically granted to Karen. So yeah, not a whole lot else to this boss fight. Or to this boss room, I should say. It's just a river and a couple of waterfalls. So let's head back to the bonfire. Okay, that's actually going to do it for this episode, but first let's have a look at the Soul of Sif. Soul of Sif, the great Grey Wolf, who guards the grave of Artorias the... You see the ghost trying to climb up on the rock there? That's amazing. Trying to either write their own message up there or leave a note of their own up there. Oh man. Soul of Sif, the great Grey Wolf, who guards the grave of Artorias, the Abyss Walker. Special beings have special souls. Use the Soul of Sif, who inherited the Divine Knight Sword, to acquire a huge amount of souls or to create a unique weapon. And so, it might seem silly that we use that soul to get Artorias' greatsword, and we actually have an option which is perhaps a further dash of silliness, that we have an option of getting a version of the greatsword from before it was tainted by the Abyss, and one that is cursed and tainted by the Abyss. So I'm not sure that I can explain that, but the fact that Sif is using Artorias' greatsword in the fight with Manus, and then in the boss fight with us just then, it makes sense, to a degree, that you would be able to use his soul to craft Artorias' sword. That's actually not going to do it for the episode, but it is going to do it for us tonight. Because I've been streaming for 4 hours now, and that's kind of the point when I start just getting really tired and needing to call it, because I'm no longer really capable of conscious and critical thought of the sort that I like to think, anyway, people come to watch videos on my YouTube channel for. So we will next Monday, because for those of you who aren't aware, for the time being anyway, and I would recommend following me on Twitter at Aegon_of_Astora. Yeah, I would recommend following me on there because the schedule might have to change depending on when I'm legislated back to work. So, provided that my schedule doesn't change, the next stream will be next Monday. I don't want to put an exact time on it just yet, so I'll say around the same time as we started this week. So, late afternoon, early evening, but closer to early evening. But it's 9:30 in the evening now, and I've been streaming for 4 hours, so we're going to call it there. It's been a pleasure, so thank you all very, very much for joining me, and I will see you next Monday. But before then on YouTube, if you're going to watch the edited version of the prior 3 episodes on YouTube. So, thanks again, everyone. Have a good night. Bye-bye.